And yes, I'm going to be nice about this. I'm only going to make you solve by hand just a system of 2 equations. You can do 3, you can do 4, you can do 5. It gets gross, but I'm only going to make you guys just do a system of 2 equations. Okay, well, like how we start out with, we want to take this system of equations and we want to write it into an augmented matrix. So just check out. Got x's and y's on the same side, constant. X, y's, it's all alphabetized, looks good. So let's write our first augmented matrix. We have 2, positive 4, negative 3, 1. Draw my line to represent those equal signs. And then we have negative 8 and a negative 2. Okay. All right, so now I guess if nothing else, you're going to probably want to watch this several times just so that you can kind of see what's going on. So you want to go in this order. Always start here in the top left, and you want to make that a 1. And how you make 1s is you just divide the row, that whole row. So I'm going to take R1, and I want to divide it by exactly what's sitting there, which is 2. And that's how you make a 1. Remember our goal? Eventually, hopefully, by the time we get down here, it's going to have a 1, a 0, a 0, and some numbers right here. Okay, so we always start here first, then we come down to that position, make a 0. Next we go there, and then there. So start in your top left and go counterclockwise. You always have to go in that order. And anytime you're making a 1, you just go to that row that has that you're wanting the 1 in, and divide that whole row by whatever's sitting there. Okay? And I'll say this several more times if you need me to. But okay, so divide this whole row by 2. So 2 divided by 2, 1. Negative 3 divided by 2, okay, negative 3/2. Negative 8 divided by 2, negative 4. And notice, I'm not doing anything yet to row 2, which is fine. We're taking this step by step. Okay. Next, I've got my 1 in my top left. That one's done. Next step is to come below it. We're going to go to row 2, and I want to put a 0 right here. So I'm looking at putting a 4. At that 4, I want to put a 0 in its space. And the position that you're changing, that's the only row that actually is going to change. So if I wanted to, technically, what I could do is come right back up here to the matrix, and I could list off row 1 and I'm not going to change it. I'm focusing on this position right down here. It's in row 2, so row 1 is going to stay the way it is. Okay. Now to figure out how am I going to get a 0 there, and you're like, oh, it's simple. Just subtract 4 from that whole row. No. You can't ever. This is all kind of like a multiplication system, okay? And just follow these steps. If I want to put a 0 there, what's the opposite of that number sitting there? Well, the opposite of 4 is negative 4. So I'm going to go back up to row 1. I'm going to multiply it by the opposite, which is negative 4, and then add it down to row 2. Remember how I told you whatever's listed second is what's changing? Okay, so I'm going to multiply negative 4 times everything in row 1, and then I'm going to add it down to row 2. So negative 4 times 1 is a negative 4, and then plus 4. Negative 4 plus 4, look, gives me my 0 right there. A negative 4 times a negative 3/2, that'll be a positive 12/2, which is 6, and 6 plus 1, 7. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. Positive 16 minus 2 is 14. All right, well, look there. So far, we're 2 for 2. We got a 1 in the top left, a 0 below it. And according to my steps, I need to put a 1 in that position right there. And anytime you want to make a 1, like I said, anytime you want to make a 1, wherever that row is, in this case it's row 2, you just divide all that row by that number sitting right there. So row 2 divided by 7, as simple as that. Okay, row 1's not changing because all we're doing is dividing row 2. Okay, so 0 divided by 7, 0. 7 divided by 7, 1. And 14 divided by 7 is 2. All right, we're 3 for 3. All we have left that we have to do is put a 0 in that position. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. All I have to do is put a 0 in that top right. So row 2 is actually the way I want it. But 0, 1, and 2, we're done. I just need to put a 0 up above. And like I said before, it's all going to be about using the opposites. Okay. Right now I have it as a negative 3/2. So what's the opposite of a negative 3/2? Well, it's a positive 3/2. So I'm going to go to row 2. I'm going to multiply it by the opposite, which is 3/2, and I'm going to add it onto row 1. And remember, I'm doing row 1 because row 1 is what's changing. So let's do a positive 3/2 times everything here in row 2, and then we're going to add it up. Well, 3/2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 3/2 times 1 is 3/2. 3/2 minus 3/2 is 0. 3/2 times 2, which is 6 over 2, which is 3. And 3 minus 4 is a negative 1. And look, right there. If you look really closely at that last matrix right there, we have it solved because we have 1s along the diagonal and 0s everywhere else. And that first row is telling us that x is equal to negative 1. And that second row is telling us y is equal to 2. And there's my solution right there. Okay? So I know this is kind of tricky. I highly, highly suggest stopping real quick and just watching this problem like a couple more times. But if you want to, let's take 2 seconds real quick, and yes, and let me kind of narrow down or maybe make some generalizations real quick. Let me erase this, and then I'll write out some generalizations for you guys. Okay, what you might do is just kind of follow me, because you're looking at this going, oh my lord, she just threw up a bunch of other crazy stuff. I have no clue what she's looking at. Okay, let me just walk you through this just real quick, and then you can come back and copy this down. I highly suggest copying this down. I just wanted to give you a general matrix, okay? And how you read this is this, like this A11, this is an element, basically. It's in the first row, first column. So A12, first row, second column. A13, first row, third column. So this is all about the first row, first column, second column, third column. And then look at this next row. See how it's all 2, 2, 2, then 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. That's how you read it, is second row, first column, second row, second column, second row, third column. Okay, so that's what that kind of all is all about. But these operations that I wrote in between here never will change whatsoever. So just read it. All it says is take row 1 always and divide it by whatever's sitting in A11. So whatever is sitting right here in A11, divide row 1 by it. Simple as that. And what comes out should be something like over here, okay, after you divide it in, meaning all you're done is put a 1 right there. Now this next step is exactly the same no matter what. You're going to go to row 1, multiply it by the negative of whatever's sitting right here, and then add it back and add it down to row 2. Something as simple. So you're going to be multiplying row 1 by a negative A21 and then adding it down. And what that should do is put a 0 in that position. Okay, so just follow these steps every single time. Next thing you want to do is divide row 2 by whatever is sitting right there. Exactly, no matter what is sitting there, just divide all of row 2 by that. Okay, and after you do that, it's going to put a 1 right there. So you've got a 1, a 0, you've got your 1. All you need to do is put a 0 right there. And how you're going to do that is take row 2, all of row 2, multiply it by whatever the opposite of what's sitting there. So a negative A12, add it up to row 2, and when you get through that, you should have that something that looks exactly like that, where x is always going to be equal to that number and y is always going to be equal to that number. Okay, so hopefully you can see kind of a generalization. Is anytime you're going to make a 1, all you have to do is divide by a number. Divide a whole row by a specific number. Anytime you're trying to make zeros, you've got to do this whole thing of multiplying by an opposite and adding, multiplying by an opposite and adding. So making 1s are simple. Just divide rows through by a simple constant. Making zeros, though, you have to multiply and add, multiply and add. Okay, so pause this video real quick if you want to copy this down. This is exactly what you're going to do every single time whenever you want to solve a system of 2 equations by hand. Okay, and then restart it again, and we're going to go to number 12, give you guys a great break, and we're going to use our calculators.